Welcome back to another episode of Show Up with Sarah. I am here today with Kristina Bergsten, who is an attorney and an author and a philanthropist. And I'm trying to think of anything else, but I met her here in Colorado, and now she has recently relocated to Philadelphia. Thank you for being on my podcast, Kristina. How are you?
I'm fine, Sarah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. How are you doing?
Oh, and a podcast host as well. Sorry, I forgot that one. I'm doing well. So I'm happy to have you here because like I know kind of like a running joke. I don't know if it's a running joke even, but kind of like a general thing with what you do is that whenever I tell people, oh yeah, well, Kristina is an animal attorney. People are like, a what? Right. And so it's like people don't know that this job exists. But for the majority of people, I feel like in Denver, they really should freaking know that this job exists because you help a lot of people and you help a lot of animals. And I think I've asked you before, but I obviously want to ask for my audience and everything. So you're Bergsten animal law firm. You have been in practice for a number of years now. You go to court, you negotiate things, you do a ton. There's a lot about animal law I did not know, and I'm very thankful that I know you because you have randomly been like, hey, watch out for that, and I would never have thought about it. So the main question I think that anybody probably wonders is there's so many different types of law. There's so many different types of attorneys that we know about readily. What made you decide, you know what, animals, I'm going to go for the animals?
Good question. It's not usually the question I get first. Usually that's my follow-up question, but why and I don't have an answer to this. Everybody asks me this question. I don't have an answer. It started with, I was working for a family law firm outside of Philadelphia when I first started practicing law. And to anyone who's ever had a divorce or ever been in family court, it's horrible. The attorneys are horrible. The clients are horrible. The judges, everybody's mean. No, you can never make anybody happy. They are. They're getting divorced. Their life is falling apart, and they
Yeah.
want you to fix it. And you're like, I can't. So anyway, I was working for a family law firm, but my bosses were super cool. They had really good work-life balance, very chill people, the kind of attorneys that like I would love to be when I grow up. And so they said, hey, we know family law is hard. What else would you like to do? And in law school, I studied environmental law, and I wanted to be like the environmental lawyer. I wanted to work for the UN fighting environmental racism and like working for Native American tribes in the United States, like fighting environmental racism and getting water rights and like, really feel good stuff.
And then you saw a dog and you said, F those people. I'm gonna go for that puppy. No, just joking.
That's good. I like that. I'm gonna go for that puppy. Anyway, well, kind of and kind of not. It wasn't really my choice. So I was like, well, how about environmental law and animal law? I don't know why I said animal law. I have no idea. There was no thought process behind it. And they're like, what's animal law? And I was like, I don't know. Let's just put it on the website.
I just said it.
And then, so they put it on the website. They put both. Environmental law got 0 calls, except for people who were like, the gas pipeline's going through my backyard and I don't want to pay you, but I want you to stop the gas pipeline from going through my yard. And I'm like, I've had like 6 months of legal experience. I'm like, yeah, I'll take this case on pro bono. I need to make a name for myself. I'll be the one attorney with 6 months of experience fighting a natural gas company, entire army of lawyers. So that didn't pan out.
Well, and I imagine that from what my understanding is, it's not very lucrative to be an environmental activist, which I feel like you almost have to become if you're a lawyer fighting the big oil and all that type of stuff. Like at least that's what I gather from like movies.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Like my problem was that I wasn't poor enough yet. I was close, but I wasn't there yet to be an environmental attorney. So Anyway, so like, yeah, nobody really called. It was a waste of my time. I was just like, I couldn't do it. And then, but at the same time, we were getting tons of calls on animal law. Like, hey, my neighbor stole my dog and we got into a fist fight in the street. The cops got called. Cause like, right, it's Philly, right? Like I was
Yeah.
outside Philly. So
Yeah.
they're like getting into fist fights over their Chiweenie in the street. The cops are getting called. Neighbors were stealing people's dogs, family, friends, boyfriend, girlfriend, boy, whatever. Any unmarried couple, they were getting their pets stolen after the breakup or whatever. And so I was getting calls left and right. I had a lady who called because the Pennsylvania State Police shot her dog. Well, it was like tethered in a backyard inside a fence, and they like shot the dog. Like that was a horrific one. Anyway, so that's how it started here in Delaware County of Pennsylvania, and then I mean that's it. And the rest is history.
And I like knowing that because it's important to, it's important to, for a lot of people, entrepreneurs, business owners, things like that, to be reminded that, or aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners to be reminded that it's not always this like come to Jesus moment where you're like, oh, I discovered my passion and my calling. Like it can literally just be a day where you're like, I don't know, I say this, which can work out, and then obviously, yes, you move to Colorado, and everybody here has like probably 5 dogs a piece. As you know, I have the 2, and so I'm not surprised when I see that you're able to like buy yourself a home, and today's client, you're able to like take yourself on trips, all these things, because in my head, attorneys have money. And then when I think about like, well, animal law, I'm like, I mean, how well can that be paying, right? Not to like focus on your income, but then I look at how everybody seems to be really, really horrible at being dog owners. And I'm like, oh, it's probably paying pretty gosh darn well, because everybody here sucks, it seems like, so in Colorado, obviously, like your business, you started it here, it took off here, you are now opening another office in Philadelphia, in the Philadelphia and Jersey area. And so what do you think, and we recently just discussed this via text, right? But what do you think was the big change in your business? Because starting your own business is very hard. Obviously being able to be in a niche, because I know that when we've discussed your business in the past, you're like, it's not like there are a ton of animal lawyers in Denver, right? So you definitely had a hold on that market, but it's still like for for people like me and friends that I know, if someone hurt my dog, I would call the police, I would probably call a lawyer, but I wouldn't think, let me call an animal lawyer, right? Like I just don't know if I would know that. So what, in terms of marketing yourself and getting out there and building your name and your brand, what are some really key things that you did? And then what do you think, when did you see a real big uptick in your business?
There's a lot there. So I want to answer your question, but I do kind of want to backtrack and tell my origin story in Colorado, because it wasn't just like I landed and then
then boom,
and then pay me. I mean, it was so because I think this goes along with how I started in Philadelphia as well, back to 10 years ago. So I mean, I've been doing this for about 10 years. So my life came to a grinding, crashing halt. I can get into that, but the long and short of it is I was in a domestic violence relationship, got out of it. He made sure to do everything in his power that I was like left with less than nothing. Like there's a great Ani DeFranco line about you left me with nothing, but I've worked with less. And like that was like what I lived on. Like that was my food, that line, because I was like, he's not going to keep me down, I mean? So I moved to Colorado with my dog and my cat and like the clothes that I owned, and like that was basically it. Some like childhood furniture that I've had. Anyway, so that's what I moved to Colorado with. I mean, I didn't have friends, family, and network. I'd never practiced in Colorado, and so to like go to Colorado and try to be an attorney my license still hadn't transferred from Pennsylvania to Colorado. So I was waiting on that. So I couldn't actually be an attorney when I'm at least practicing in Colorado when I moved here. So I was like, well, I'll get some job and I'll pay my bills that way. And then like I'll network at night. And so I got a job working for a tax resolution company, the kind like, we'll settle your debt with the IRS for pennies on the dollar, the TV commercials. So I was working for that, and that was as sleazy as it sounds. And suddenly the Colorado Supreme Court gets involved because one of the competitors of this company supposedly had like non-attorneys representing themselves as attorneys. And so the Colorado Supreme Court got involved and was like, trying to discipline all the actual attorneys, because you can represent people to the IRS as long as you're an attorney. Doesn't matter what state, because attorney licenses are state specific, like a lot of licenses, nurses, therapists, etc. So anyway, so the Colorado Supreme Court comes in and they say, look, either you stop calling yourself an attorney, or we're gonna file a unauthorized practice of law action against you. And my license was pending in front of the Supreme Court at the time. And I was like, well, I can't do that. And I can't not call myself an attorney. I have too much debt and I've worked too hard to not call myself an attorney. Like that's BS. Can I swear on your show?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's bullshit. And so I was like, what do I do? So I started this job in January of 2017. And then by March, it was falling apart. And I was like, what do I do? What do I do? Like, I have this Colorado rent that I can barely afford. And so I reached out to a guy that I had interviewed with to be a private investigator. His name's John Strange. And like, his name is exactly who you think he is. Whatever you're envisioning in your head, that's him. And I was like, John, I am desperate. My business is like this is a disaster. I'm going to lose my job. Like, I'll do your laundry. I'll watch your kids. Like, I'll be your secretary. Like, give me anything, just anything. And he's like, well, I don't have anything you can do for me, but I've got this office that I can give you, at low rent on 17th Street in downtown Denver. And, you can open your own law firm. And I was like, are you insane? Did you just hear what I said? Like, I have no money and you want me to just like start a business? And I thought about it a lot, and I was like, he's crazy. Like, what am I going to do? And then I was like, you know what? I'd rather try and fail than always wonder what if. And that is something that I live by even to this day. Like, I'd rather try and fail than always wonder what if. And I think that really paid off. So I sat there. So I quit my job. I opened my law firm in April 2017. I sat in that empty office and I built my website. And I thought I was going to be Colorado's greatest. My goal was to be Colorado's greatest drug defense attorney. I was like, I'm going to have to that was my goal, because I didn't really think the animal thing would take off, because like most people, I just didn't think that there's enough there. And so ironically, like while I was waiting to come out to Colorado, I applied to work with one of my competitors in Colorado, and she's like, there's just not enough work here, sorry, I can't hire you. And then now she's eating my dust. Anyway, so we all make bad choices. And so I was like creating a website, like, I'm Colorado's #1 drug attorney, and I've never had a drug case in my life. And I was like, I'm gonna have to learn chemistry really fast, and like, it'll be fine, it'll be great. But I put the animal stuff on there as well. And, again, I was getting like 0 calls on the drugs, the DUIs, and I was getting a ton of calls on the animal stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So I just got rid of all the drug stuff. Eventually I like came to my senses and started doing the animal stuff. So, I mean, I guess the lesson there, like you said, from the first phase of my origin story is, you don't know, and it's better to try and fail than wonder what if. So, well, to answer your question finally, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, it's also important where like we may have a very strong vision about what we want with our business or what we think we're going to do. And sometimes what shows up is very much like, no, this is it, right? I mean, it's the equivalent of when I decided to change over to life coaching. I was like, okay, I'm gonna like talk about all these things. I'm gonna get all these women who show up and it's gonna be so great. And then it was just like black guy, black guy, black guy. And I was like, oh, so I guess I work with men. is that what's happening? Because like this is not at all the plan that I had at all. Not at all, you know, like, so I like that you just kind of listen to like, well, this is what's showing up. So obviously this is probably it. And so and it's also important, and I know this about you personally, but like you network a ton. Like
Hmm.
you do a lot of the groundwork. Do you think that that's like the one thing that has really helped, or do you think that that's something that's missing from a lot of people's businesses? What's your take on getting out there and networking?
That's a really good question. I think because like what I do is so unique and so niche, it's really easy for me to meet people and strike up a conversation and talk about what I do. So networking is really beneficial for me. And I have no competition, more or less. I mean, there are other animal attorneys that exist throughout the country, but none of them are across 3 states. None of them have more than one office. So, I mean, networking is super important. I think you can, I don't think you can run a business and not network. I think you have to. And I think it is always important to put a face to the business. So for me, did networking make or break my business? I think initially in Colorado, getting started, had I not networked, I probably wouldn't have been as successful as quickly as I was. I think it definitely helped letting others in my industry know, like, hey, if you ever come across some crazy dog case, give it to me. And they're like, yeah, sure, that's not worth any money, I'll give it to you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, yeah, it's not worth any money. So yeah, so I mean, networking was super vital for me. And it's also good to just like have friends, you know, in your industry that you can say, yeah, I don't do this, but they do. I don't do wills, but so and so does. So I mean, networking definitely important. For me, again, because my industry is so niche, internet advertising has been probably the number one way that I get most of my clients, because
Okay.
that's just the way people get information these days. It's not through word of mouth anymore.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed when I find attorneys who don't have a website. I'm like, how do you,
Yeah. Yeah.
how?
Yeah.
But you know, some of the older attorneys, that's just the thing. They have a very centralized business, very local business, and they, you know, they can get plenty of referrals or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think obviously spending time and money on a good website. I think I updated my website. So I made my own website on Wix. I love Wix. I'm not paid by them. This isn't a plug for them, I guess. But I mean, that it was a great website for me because it was really easy for me to like build it on my own, and it looked nice. I mean, I was
Yeah.
happy with it. I got a lot of traffic. I learned a lot about SEO, having to teach myself. But when I invested the time and the money into an actual professional website designer, Unbound Photography. They did a great job. That's the only reason. And again, not being paid or to plug them or anything, but they just did a good job. And
Yeah.
they're an independent business owner, and I like you know, promoting people who do good work. And he designed my website in August of 2019, I want to say. And I mean, through the roof, like what I was
Really?
doing before. Yeah, I mean, just my website now compared to what it was is so sleek. He was able to figure out there's some metric that Google rates your website based on like how fast things load, and like he fixed all that, so everything was loading faster and it looked better on mobile. And so yeah, and the photo quality was obviously professional because he's
Yeah.
a professional photographer as well. So I mean, there was a lot of things that he did that I couldn't do that took my website to the next level. And it makes me stand apart from other attorneys too. So not only is my practice unique, but everyone who comes to visit my website, they're like, wow, this is a really nice website.
Yeah.
And it looks like I spent thousands and thousands of dollars. And I mean, I spent a chunk of change, but it was, you know, it was affordable. And I
Yeah.
think if you can find someone who's local to you or whatever, who's an independent business owner getting started themselves, who's like is an artist, you know, you can get good quality websites for a reasonable price. And then all of a sudden, like you've invested in your business, it's going to pay itself back eventually.
Yeah.
And mine did like tenfold.
And so you were, I know that we just went a little away, but you were like,
Mm.
that's or part one of my origin story. The other part of the question that I had asked was,
Mm.
what do you think was something that's like a change or a decision or a mindset that really
Oh.
changed your business?
I would say that occurred. So I had a lot of life, I had a lot of like come to God, come to Jesus moments, whatever you want to call it, in 2019. Like I said, I went through this really horrible divorce, really horrible like chapter in my life was coming to a close. And for some reason, 2019 was the year that I was just like, I just decided like I am stepping into my power. I mean, not even to be like that cheesy and that woo woo about it. I was just like, I'm going to stop apologizing for who I am, especially to myself. I'm not going, I just decided I'm not going to worry about money.
Yeah.
I'm not going to worry about finding the one. I'm not going to, I'm just not going to worry anymore. Like,
Hmm.
God will take care of it, or higher power, or the universe, whatever word you use. I'm into the all these days. It's a long story why I'm there. But I used to say the universe. So I'm into the universe will take care of me. Like I just gotta like put one foot in front of the other. I gotta do my work. The universe isn't gonna do everything, but I gotta do what I do every day and I gotta try.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna worry anymore. And yeah, I don't know, for whatever reason in 2019, like when I made that decision, the stars aligned and they just
Yeah.
were like, and then and then yeah, like a lot of really great things started happening after that, and I didn't worry and it felt great.
So if you would be open to sharing, like, what's the, let's say in 2018 and then 2020, what do you feel the percentage of your business, like how much did it increase?
So I mean, so I started my business in 2017, April 2017. I like squeaked out a living. I was living on, I had Medicaid. I didn't get food stamps, but I mean, I probably could have qualified.
Yeah.
I mean, I was barely paying my rent, but I was happy. um, and then 2018 happened, and then 2018 I made twice as much money. I think actually more than twice as much money in 2018 as I did in 2017, which wasn't a lot, but it was enough. And then, yeah, 2019, I doubled what I did in 2018. 2020, I doubled in what I did in 2019. And now, I mean, what year are we in?
2022.
2022. I mean, I'm on track to double what I mean, so in 5 years, I've more
You
or less doubled what I've made every single year. And I can't really say that I can say that 2018, I remember calling, or 2019, I remember calling one of the advertisers that I advertised with. I don't know why I'm pantomiming everything. I talk
you're
with my
fine.
hands.
You're good.
Um, so,
Yeah.
2019, I called one,
I was gonna say the majority of people won't see this. They're just gonna hear
Oh,
it. So
okay.
yeah.
Oh, well, just know that I like use jazz hands for everything, especially if I get angry. And so, yeah, 2019, I remember calling my advertiser and being like, hey, I'm not getting as many calls. Like, I'm not stressed out like I was in 2018. I mean, there, like, obviously there must be a drop. And the guy on the other end of the phone, he's like, well, maybe you've just grown and you're able to handle the volume of work that you're getting now, and you weren't in 2018. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like that's just what I needed to hear. You're right. I have grown. But I mean, it's true. Like in terms of volume, yeah, it had doubled since 2018, but I made that promise to myself, like, I'm not going to worry about stuff. And so I didn't even notice the increase because it was just like something had settled in my soul. And I was just like, okay, I
Yeah.
was almost serene.
When
So I
did
don't know
you
if that answered the
hire? Yeah, no. When did you hire your first employee?
I hired my first employee so I hired my first employee in the summer of 2019. She was only part-time though, because of yeah, she
It's
was only part-time.
yeah.
Sorry, I need to pause. My first employee I hired in summer of 2019. She was part-time. It was kind of like a transitional probationary thing. And then I ended up hiring her full time, I believe in 2020, at the end of August of 2020.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
that
I mean,
was
that just
good.
proves like, because if you start your business 2018, like squeaking by, and then being able to hire someone that quickly is pretty impressive. So
I know.
yeah. Yeah. So like, what's for you, like, so obviously now you're getting into like other things. You've written a book, you have the podcast. What is your work-life balance, and how easy has it been to be able to start providing more of that balance for you? Because you obviously know, when you're an entrepreneur and you start a business, you I don't know if I shouldn't speak for you, but I think a lot of people, they get into the space of like, all of my time has to be to the business. If I'm awake, I should be working on the business, right? Because I'm trying to make money. And so a lot of people go through that in the first like year or two. I know, like, I go through it. And so now, like, you've written a book. Where is it? I literally have it. You've written a book. You have the podcast. You have gotten married. There's a lot that has happened. You've taken a whole month off to go to Morocco to like see your then boyfriend, now husband, right? And so like, what has allowed you to be able to be like, okay, I'm going to take time to pursue other things? Or did you have to get your business first into a space where, like, do you think that if you hadn't doubled in 2019, do you think that you would have been able to allow yourself to step back and be like, I'm going to pursue other things? Or if you were still in that space that you were, where you're squeaking out um a living, do you think you still would have been able to be like, you know what, I'm going to allow other things to become important to me, I'm not going to worry, all of those things?
Well, I mean, to be totally honest with you, I have probably done things backwards, like like the tower card in tarot, like it's upside down for me. That'll mean something to your woo-woo fans. So 2017, I was just trying to survive. So having any amount of money, I was just so grateful for it, and I didn't worry about it. I
Yeah.
wasn't working all the time. I was actually taking advantage of the fact that I didn't have to work every single day, because I didn't have work every single
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
So I would like take my dog hiking. I would like go out. I mean, I wasn't spending money. I was doing free things and like getting to know the new city I was in. Um, but I mean, by and large, yeah, like 2017, I was probably way more chill mentally. I probably couldn't have handled more than what I had at that time. And I mean,
Yeah.
I really am a big believer that like God gives you only so much as you can handle. I forget the exact phrase, but I mean, and I think that that's kind of what I lived in 2017 and 2018. In 2018, I was like, okay, I actually have a business. I can work every single day. And like, yeah, so I can do this. And so, but mentally, I wasn't really ready for all of that. And I was trying, and I was, the only person working for myself. So I was my receptionist, my secretary, my accountant, my payroll person, my SEO, my advertising, my market. I mean, I was everything. Plus I was the attorney. And, literally some days I would pretend to be somebody else. I had a voice and a name that I used when I would answer the phone. I'm like, hi, I can't even remember the name that I used. Shannon. Hi, this is Shannon. Can I help you? Thank you for calling the animal law firm. Like, I mean, I had a
Yeah.
voice that I used. And like a Valley Girl accent. But anyway, so I guess to answer your question, like I always, again, I promise myself, like, I'm going to have a normal work life balance. I'm going to start at 9 and I'm going to end at 5. And I'm not going to work after that. And I'm not going to work before that. I need to make sure my clients are well aware that, like, these are my hours. This is when you can reach me. You can reach me through text, through phone, through email,
Yeah.
whatever during those hours, but I'm not working on the weekends. I'm not going to respond. And I did. And I kept that promise to myself. And it's still something that I tell my employees now, like, do not answer a client after hours or before hours. Don't answer them on the weekend.
Mm.
I do not want them in the habit of thinking this is acceptable,
Like,
because
yeah,
it's
they can
not.
get that habit. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I understand that they want to be nice and you really want to show me how dedicated they are. And I'm like, that's very sweet, but trust me, you're going to burn yourself out. Like, and I need you mentally well more than I need you to be like catering to the needs of people who are in a panic, because there's nothing we can do on the weekend anyway.
How many employees do you have now?
Currently, I have uh 5.
Okay.
Just like a week ago, I had 7, but they were term, they were just on for the summer, summer law clerks. And so, yeah, so I had 7 about a week ago. Now I have 5. I'm going to have another extern coming on at the end of the month. He won't be paid, so that's kind of different. But still, it's like
Yeah.
a huge, I had no idea what a huge responsibility it was to like manage people like
Yeah.
that. All summer, I feel like I didn't work at all because I was just answering questions and text messages like constantly,
Teaching.
like, oh my God. Well, we communicate over text message. And so, because it's just like the most effective way for all of us to communicate um, quickly and easily. And like, so I guess to your point, like, yeah, I was the inverted pyramid. Like I worked a lot less outside of business hours then than I do now because I feel the demands are much higher now in terms of trying to like manage my staff, manage my clients, and for some reason, it's like the more I get, I feel like the less I have. And it's something that this is a thing that ever since 2020, I really have kind of had to keep talking to myself and being like, you need to go back. You need to go back to where you were before because you had a better mindset and you were a lot more grateful when you had nothing. And now that you have stuff, you're saying like it's not enough.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know what that comes from or where that comes from. I think there's a certain sense of responsibility that I feel because I have employees. I feel responsible for their
Yeah.
livelihoods, and I am. And and I've got a husband now, and a bigger house, and so like there are increased demands on me and my sense of responsibility to
Yeah.
others. So it's a lot easier when I just have to worry about like, oh, hey, well, I don't need to eat this week. I'll be fine. Be fine. But like, you can't have that attitude when you're like paying other people so they can eat. And,
Yeah.
you've got a husband who like needs to eat a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
so yeah,
fair.
so yeah, I mean, yeah, so I probably break my rule a lot more often now, but I definitely on the weekends do not do it. Sometimes I'll answer text messages like at 6 or something because I'm also working on 2 different time zones. So
Yeah.
me not being like me stopping at 5 in the East Coast time zone. Yeah, I do
Doesn't
that,
necessarily
but I'm
work, but
still, yeah,
um
sorry.
no, so okay. So speaking of your time demand and everything that you have, you've expanded it more with writing the book, Eat the Rich, and
Yes.
it's like, and so okay, what have you always wanted to write a book? What made you decide, like, this is the time I'm writing this book, I'm putting this time into it, this is my passion?
I'm so glad you asked this because, like, yeah, this has always been my passion. Ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be an author, wanted to write stories. I always wanted to write, when I was a kid, I would write stories about dragons and witches and magic stuff. Like, I was very into the magic. I still am. But Eat the Rich is not magical at all. It's very dark. Um, but Eat the Rich, I started when I was in a freshman in college. I don't know why. Just one day, I just got the opening paragraph that's in the book like in my head, and I just loved it so much. I was like, I'm gonna write a story, and so like I wrote the opening paragraph, and then I met my ex-husband in college, and I was in college, so I just didn't spend as much time on it. So the long and short of it is that book actually took me like 15 years to write.
Mhm.
Um, I started it, yeah, when I was like 19, and then I got married the first time when I was 23 or something like that, like super young. Like I'm
Yeah.
from Ohio, don't hate me. That's just the way we do it there. Um ask anybody. And big mistake. So and there were warning signs, of course, and but like any domestic violence relationship, there's cycles, right? And so everything's horrible and then everything's great. Anyway, to get through all of that. So, I mean, while I was with my ex-husband, which was like 11 years of my life, there was no time for me for myself. And so there was definitely no time for me to like be alone to like write. Cause
Yeah.
what are you writing? What are you working on? What are you doing? Who are you talking to? Like just
Yeah.
constant, like you need to spend time with me. We haven't spent time, just like, bleh. And so I didn't have time to write the book. So the 15 years that I worked on it, quote unquote, we're not actually like every day working on it. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
an 11-year break. But yeah, so then I picked it up. So why did I start? I mean, I was writing off and on probably since 2020, because everybody was like, oh, it's the pandemic, I've got all this free time, I'm going to
Yeah.
spend it writing, and I'm going to publish the next great American novel. And so, like everybody else, I was like, I'm going to publish the next great American novel. I've already got one started.
Yeah.
Fuckers. So, I'm ahead of you all. And, because I'm just so competitive. Um, and then, but if I lose, I'm like, I didn't really want to compete anyway. Um, so yeah, so I started working on it then. I was meeting with like a Buddhist life coach. I was meeting with him in 2020 because some other attorney had recommended it to me, because in 2020, like, business was booming. Nobody had anything else to do besides walk their dog. So everybody's dog was in trouble in 2020.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I had a lot of calls. Like 2020 was actually like a really great year for me, like, sorry to say.
Yeah.
So I was like feeling the pressure of all that extra work. And so yeah, so I met with this Buddhist life coach because I was like trying to figure out the meaning of life. Is this really what I want to do? Like, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? And he, of course, he's a Buddhist. He doesn't have any fucking answers.
Yeah.
So, so anyway, like, so, but in that, we talked about how I really enjoy writing, and I was trying to write again. So he was like, well, I want you, every Friday to set aside an hour, and that's when you're going to work on your book. And I kind of did that for a while. And then he was like having me do meditations, and I did like a heart chakra meditation. I ended up in a black hole. And so I was like, I'm going to stop for a while. That's another long story. And then, yeah, so I mean, the short answer to your question is, in 2020, I just decided to start writing. I started setting aside time for it. And then over time between 2020 and now, because I published it like last month or something, I just made the time. And then the closer I got to completion, the more I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm actually gonna do this, And there were parts of me, for some reason, and I can't remember who I was talking to, maybe my therapist. Oh, I was in therapy all of this time, by the way, and I can't recommend therapy enough. I just said, like, why am I, like, the closer I get to finishing this, the more I resist it. And she kind of suggested, like, well, it's probably because you're just this is what you've always wanted, and you're afraid of failure. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. I mean, she was like that. When I really sat down with it, that's really what it was. I was afraid of failing. I was afraid of like this being the thing that my whole life had wanted to define me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, but if I fail, then I'm not an author. I'm not a writer. Like, I'm not good at this. And my whole life's been a lie, and I have no meaning, and I'm, in the fetal position on the floor. But again, just like, I pushed through it, and then I completed it, and yeah, and now it's published and it's for sale. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that.
I mean, a lot of people, the thing I like to remind people sometimes is that it's not always even a failure. Like, if you write a book, you're an author, you wrote a book. Like, so you didn't fail at writing a book because you wrote it, it's done. The for people, and I'm not saying it's you, but for a lot of people, it's finally getting the answer no. Like, you write a book, you put it out there, and then like literally no one cares. And you're like, oh, that's so like, but this was like so important to me. And then so just like, it matters to literally no one. And I guess that just is done, I guess. Like, I guess I'm the dream done, like, and which is real, like, because I'm like,
dream deferred.
what?
Come on.
Well, I'm saying that people see it as dream done. Like, they did it, and then no one cares, nothing sells, the business doesn't take off. So you're not a failure at starting a business. You started the business. What people interpret is like, I had a dream of doing something, and then it didn't work, and I guess that's no longer the dream, and I don't know what the dream is after that then. Like, because yeah, no one wants to know. That's the main thing. And if you like put a lot of eggs in a basket of something, of like, one day I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and then you do it, and then it doesn't take off, and you fight it for 5 years, and then you have to close it up, you're like, I guess I just go be normal. Like, and then that's just like how people see it, because they all their eggs were in this basket, like, which, I mean, I think it's good that you, at least, like, this is something that you wanted to do, but you also, it's not like the end all be all for you. Like, you have like the business and stuff. And so, like, I think that like the resistance for you probably is like the fear of failure because you have proven success in your life. For like other people who the only thing that they ever want is to be an author and they don't pursue anything else, that like it's probably more like a fear of like the answer being no. Like this is not your path. Go do something else, right? Even if it may be. Sometimes we give up too easily. But
I would agree with that, because I mean, look at Picasso or Van Gogh. Like they never sold a single painting. Like, or maybe
mhm,
they did. I forget. Like one of them didn't sell a painting like their whole lives. Like, and then they died, and all of a sudden, like everyone wants their paintings, and now they're worth like millions of dollars. And
yeah.
I mean, I know that like doesn't make anybody who's trying to start a business feel better, because they're like, yeah, but I can't like get paid
Like
after I invest.
I need to live.
But I mean, I think it's instructive to say that like I feel like that's just American culture. We want instant gratification. And, you know, unless you have something that's really, really unique and really, really clever, then, you know, yeah, you're going to have to fight for it. I mean, this country is an ultra competitive country. And I mean, I think anywhere where you start a business, it doesn't really matter. Like it's ultra competitive. And yeah, you're going to put in a lot of work. And they say that what do they say? Like the average business owner doesn't turn a profit until 5 years. So,
Mm.
you know, and I don't know what the quit rate is. I don't know if there's statistics on that. I'm sure there are, but like, you know, you just got to have that grit, because there are days when the phone doesn't ring, even today, and I'm like, "Oh my god, the phone didn't ring. Like
Yeah.
no one's ever going to hire me again. I'm going to be poor." You know, and I mean, I have that, like I suffer from imposter syndrome just like everybody else. Like I'm not worthy. I didn't earn this. I didn't, you know, this isn't real. Like it's going to fail any day now. The other shoe's going to drop. And I think like the difference between the people who make it and the people who don't is just like they just believe in themselves. They're just unapologetic to themselves. They're just, and it sounds cliche, but it's true. Like no
Yeah.
one but you can do this. Like you're capable of infinite possibilities. Just which path are you going to choose and which one are you going to stick with?
I
um
think that like probably the biggest issue is I don't I and I it's the instant gratification, but I would even extend it to I think that some of it is people think have a perception of success being a little more linear than it is. And
mm,
so and I think that there are a lot of people who don't even realize that they come from a privileged place. Like
mhm,
I had to own that like everything has kind of always worked out for me. And so when I was like, okay, I'm going to start a business, and then it's like not working and not working, but I'm like, I really believe in this. And then I'm like, Sarah, like, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm getting low on money, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Sarah, the answer is you have to pick up other work. I'm like, but I have work. I'm an entrepreneur. And it's like, okay, that's okay, but like you don't have any money. So like what's the answer here? You know, like and that's like that comes from a privileged place of like everything kind of always works out and like I'm always going to be fine, right? Like and that's there are tons of people who just don't have that experience. And so for them it only makes sense that they work a job or two jobs or even three jobs while they're starting their business because like they want to be secure financially, but they are like very about making their business work, you know, like, and it's like however long it takes, that's how long it's gonna take. But there are tons of people who come from a privileged place, kind of like me, where they're like, oh, I've given this a whole year and I'm like running out of money. And it's just like, I guess this isn't it. You
mm,
know, and it's like, and so, but like the reality is like the mindset change that I had to make was I believe in this. So what do I literally what do I have to do to ensure that I am not only living, you know, like taking care of myself living wise, taking care of my animals, but like saving money, paying off debt, all those things, but still running a business, you know, because I'm only in year one technically of my business, you know, like and so yeah, like I think that a lot of what you because and the only reason why I really asked about you and your networking is because I think that it shows that kind of level of like grit. And I hate to use the word hustle because I feel like it's kind of been taken to be, I don't know, whatever, a little toxic, but like
mm.
you very much have a history of you show up to the networking events, you show up to all the things, you buy into the dinners, you buy into the like groups, you go and speak here, you go and talk to people over there. Like you have a lot of that grit of just like feet to the pavement, shake hands, get out there, work, make it happen type thing. And that's something that's very important, because someone could look at you now and just assume, well, you've been an attorney, you make good money, you decided while being an attorney to just keep being an attorney, but in a different space. And that is your story, but it's not your story. Like you've fought pretty gosh darn hard to make your way, which is important.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, I, you know, and to your point, like I believe God helps those who help themselves. And I swear I'm not religious. I don't know why I'm like throwing out all these like religious idioms, but
yeah.
no, but anyway, but I mean, like, I don't know. Some people get offended by stuff like that. I mean, to me, like words matter, but I think like it's all the same idea. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I won't talk about that. But yeah, like God helps those who help themselves. And I mean, to your point, like, yeah, I couldn't just sit there and be like, well, I've had my website up for a year. I've gone to a few networking things and it's just not working for me. I'm not getting what I want. Like you can't just sit there. No, you do have to put your feet on the pavement. You do have to go out and shake hands. I mean, there were days that I was like, okay, looking at my budget, like I have enough money to take out this one attorney that I think is going to help me get business to lunch. And so that means like no going out for me for 2 weeks. Period. I mean, not that I was going out a lot anyway, but you know, I mean, you've got to prioritize. It's like, okay, like what sacrifices can I make? And yeah, in the beginning, it's always a sacrifice. Everything is a sacrifice, but that's the way it works for your dream. And I think like like a person's mentality really helps make the dream happen. If you sit there and you think like I'm trying so hard and it's not getting me anywhere and I'm doing everything and like why and stomp your feet, then like the universe, all they're hearing is like you whining. And so the universe is like, oh, like Kristina keeps whining, she's saying it's not working. Like, yeah, okay, so here's more not working. Like but if you're sitting there saying and you're like, wow, this is great, I'm like so grateful, I got one more client this week than I had last week, then the universe is like, oh yeah, this made her happy. She's happy that she got one more client. So, oh, here's another client. Like, I think in reality, the universe or whatever you want to call it wants to give you what you want, but you've got to place the right order, right? Like I heard this on another podcast. You can't just sit there and tell the waiter, I don't want shrimp, because the waiter is going to be like, okay, but what do you want? And if you're like, not shrimp, then the waiter's going to be like, okay, and then the waiter's going to bring you shrimp because that's all you keep saying. It's like, I don't know what to do, you got to tell me what to do. But I think, you know, it's like a computer program, you got to plug in the right codes, HTML. So I mean, like it's not only about your mindset and like doing the work, like because it will happen if you believe it, but yeah, you can't just sit there like a slug and like expect stuff to drop in your lap, because that's just not how things work.
So okay, to bounce back a little bit, you are in the process of writing a second book.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And is that a continuation? I haven't gotten through this book yet. Is a continuation of this one, or is it something different?
No, totally different. I do not know if I'll write a sequel. I've been told that I could write a sequel from this just based on how this one ends, not to give anything away, but and the only reason you haven't finished it, right, is because it's not a page turner, it's because you're just very busy. So
I read like that's where I'm at. So I read like 10 minutes a day.
Okay.
So I'm I mean, yes, I'm I'm a plug away reader for sure. And it helps that like the chapters aren't long also. Like, so it's easy to be like, okay, I'm gonna read like this chapter and I can get that done in like 5 minutes, right? So yeah, you're writing your second one, and you are starting a publishing company. And why start the publishing company?
Because honestly, because this is like kind of like the reason I went vegan. Oh my god, because I didn't want to like publish a book without having a publisher, and it looks better if somebody opens a book and they're like, oh, a publishing company picked this up.
Gotcha.
Appearances, perception is reality. And like this is how, again, this is how I applied this to my business as well. Like if I go in to a networking event where there's a ton of other attorneys and I have like spent my last dime trying to buy the nicest suit I can, and I go and I walk right up to the person that got the award and I start talking to them like I know them, everybody in the room is going to think that I know them. And they're going to be like, oh, who's this chick? Like she knows so-and-so, they just got an award for being like the best attorney in the world. Like she must be pretty darn awesome. And then people start talking to me because they think that I'm special. And I am, they just don't know it yet. And so,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And like, that's the approach every entrepreneur needs to have. Like somebody gave me advice one time, like, go and talk to the quietest person in the room. Fuck that. No, go and talk to the most important person in the room. They said like, go and talk to the shy person because they'll appreciate it and remember you more than somebody who's like got a bunch of hands.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I see the logic in that, but like, no, it's not gonna, if I'm pounding the pavement, like that's not gonna help me get to where I need to go. Like I'll talk to them when I'm famous, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I forgot what I was saying. Oh, perception
A
is, yeah,
publisher. Yeah.
yeah. So I started a publishing company called Ouroboros Publishing. It's not easy to say, and it's not going to get a lot of hits in search SEO. But I like the idea of, you know, I like the idea of the snake eating its tail, like the end is endless beginning and ending. It's just like the mystical stuff that appeals to me, and I like the idea too because I'm like, as a publishing company, I can say, I'm providing the public with an endless beginning and ending through endless publications of books. And like, I think it's stupid that you have to like submit a sample and then some person's going to decide. Like, no, just give me your fucking manuscript. I'll publish it. I don't care what it's about. Like, I mean, it's like, this is not antithetical to like who I am as a person. Like they're being like, burn. I don't know. You know, like as long as it's not like racist or sexist or something horrific,
Yeah.
like let's eat babies. Like I'll basically publish it because like I like the idea of like giving everybody a chance because everybody deserves a chance.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was the thought process behind it.
Well, I think it's dope, and I'm very happy for you, and I'm
Thanks.
very proud of you.
Can we pause?
All right, so to wrap it up, just the two questions I ask every guest. First question: how do you desire to better show up for others?
Oh, these were quick questions. That's not an easy question. I guess I don't know, through love, you know, like I always try to ask people how they're doing because like this is the thing, like I'm such an independent person. Everybody's like, "Oh, Kristina's fine. We don't need to check on her." But like I know what it's like to like be alone and like not feel seen or supported. And so for me, like I'm just kind of like, you know, I'm gonna check in on people every once in a while. Just try to remember to like drop them a quick text and see how they're doing and like what's going on. It's something that I try to do with all my friends as much as I remember to. And like with my husband, like, you know, like we have conversations about what our needs are and like what, you know, we just ask each other like, what did you not like about this fight, or what did you? I mean, that sounds stupid, but you know, we just talk
No,
to each other in communication. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, just listening to other people, I think is the best way to show up for them.
And how do you desire to better show up for yourself?
Um, I need to better show up for myself. I think through like prayer and meditation. I need to stop focusing so much on the material. Kind of like what I was saying earlier. Like I have the more I get, the more I feel like I don't have, right? And that's such a crazy way to think. And I don't like it about myself. And so I've been trying to figure out, how do I get back to who I was in 2018? Like that position, that place of gratefulness, because that's when I was happiest. And I think that that's the best way to show up for myself. It requires a lot less anxiety medication when I'm grateful for what I have than when I'm sitting here worrying about like, what do I need next? So yeah, I think gratefulness is how I need to show up better for myself.
I love it. Okay, thank you so much for being on the show. For
Thank you.
everybody who is listening, you should be able to pull up the bio and find her link in there on all the major platforms. And if you are watching this on YouTube, her link, it will be in the description as well. So you can go to her website, you can find out more. If you need an attorney, you can get one, and you can find her book on Amazon as well. But I'm just really happy that you were able to come on and discuss a lot about your journey. So thank you so very much.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Have a good day, and bye.
Thanks, you too.